When people hear the word Holocaust, they initially think of Jews in Europe, but the Holocaust had an impact on Jews worldwide, especially in the United States.
American Jews had a general idea of what was happening to the Jews in Europe during World War II, but they didn't have enough power to influence political and societal actions.
The United States' political stance, news publications, and anti-Semitism in America all impacted American Jews and their ability to take action during the Holocaust.
One of the main struggles that American Jews were faced with during the Holocaust was the lack of correct and consistent information. In the beginning of the Nazi regime in Germany, Americans, both Jews and non-Jews, were aware of the Nazi Party's anti-Semitism. Pre-World War II, discriminatory actions against the Jews mainly started in 1935 with the Nuremberg Laws and also in 1938 with Kristallnacht. These two events were widely reported in the American newspapers. Peter Novick, author of The Holocaust in American Life, said, "Kristallnacht, in which dozens of Jews were killed, had been on the front page of the New York Times for more than a week. As the wartime Jewish death toll passed through thousands and into millions, it was never again featured so prominently." After the Nuremberg Laws and Kristallnacht, a lot about the Holocaust was hidden by the Nazis and not publicized in the United States. This was due to the lack of correct information from secondhand and third-hand reports. There was a lot of confusion in media around the world since the Nazis were very secretive about their plans. As the atrocities against the Jews increased, so did the misinformation that reached the United States. One newspaper said that 7,000 Jews were being massacred each week, while another said that 7,000 Jews were being massacred each day. The only first-hand reports came from Jews who had escaped, information submitted anonymously, anonymous German informants, and the Soviet government. The most important single-hand report on the Holocaust that reached the West came from a then-anonymous German businessman and was passed on in mid-1942 by Gerhard Ringer, representative of the World Jewish Congress in Switzerland. When the reports of the atrocities against the Jews in Europe reached the United States, many were astonished by the largeness of the contrived plans of the Nazis. William L. Schreier, the author of Berlin Diary, who was a European war correspondent for CBS, reported that by the end of 1945, he learned for sure about the Holocaust and that the news hit like a thunderbolt. By 1944, 3/4 of Americans said that they believed that the Germans were killing people in concentration camps, but when asked how many they thought, many estimated 100,000 or fewer. By the end of the war in 1945, many American people estimated that about 1 million were murdered in concentration camps. This shows that Americans didn't have an accurate perception of what was actually happening to the Jews in the concentration camps during the Holocaust.
Since 1933, American Jews had known about the horrible anti-Semitism occurring in Germany. From then till the end of the Holocaust, Rabbi Stephen S. Wise led the American Jews and others to try and convince the United States to be more active in the issue. The United States government tightened their immigration policy during the 1940s, causing many European Jews to be homeless. Many American Jews tried to change the policy or create an all-Jewish state, but it was the work of several Christian churches that made the Jewish state possible. They sent a letter to Great Britain asking them to make Palestine open its doors to Jewish refugees. August 28, 1942, Rabbi Stephen S. Weiss got a message from London stating that Führer's headquarters plan discussed and under consideration that all Jews in countries occupied or controlled by Germany should, after deportation and concentration in the East, at one blow be exterminated. On September 2, 1942, Rabbi Weiss sent a letter to the Undersecretary of State, Summer Wells, informing him of the evidence sent to him from London. Wells asked Weiss not to go public with the information till he had confirmed it, but little did Weiss know that the State Department already received the information early. The American Jewish Committee requested the United States government take whatever steps are necessary in order to stop Germany, because the committee said that the crimes were barbaric and inhumane. But the most important fact the United States had to realize was the horrendous crimes weren't being committed against European Jews, but all Jews. The American Jewish Committee stated, "We call all Americans, for we have every reason to expect that men and women of every faith and denomination will join their Jewish fellow citizens in protest against the appalling injustice of which German Jews have become the victims." The American Jewish Congress, led by Rabbi Weiss, had sent several letters to President Franklin D. Roosevelt and all the members in Congress, convincing them of what action should take place, but few supported them. In March 1943, the American Jewish Congress set up a rally in New York called Stop Hitler Now. During the rally, the Congress proposed its 11-point program with specific rescue proposals to stop the Holocaust. Yet again, their tries were ignored. All throughout 1943, Rabbi Weiss spent most of his time publicizing the gruesome truth about what was going on in Germany. But in 1944, it was the War Refugee Board that ended up convincing President Roosevelt to stop the Holocaust.
It is said that American Jews could have done more to help save Jews in Europe, but in reality they were faced with anti-Semitism and discrimination by other Americans. Most of the Jews in America during the 1930s and 40s were new immigrants who were trying to start a new life. They were trying to navigate a new country and didn't feel comfortable expressing their views against anti-Semitism in Europe. Most importantly, they lacked a central Jewish community, which prevented them from trying to put an end to the Holocaust. Many Jews in America had different opinions on what should be done in Europe. The Jewish Labor Committee refused to protest the Nazi government. The American Jewish Committee, made up of the wealthier, more Americanized Jews, thought the best way to deal with Hitler was behind-the-scenes negotiations. The American Jewish Congress, which represented the less Americanized Jews, thought the best way to go against the Nazis was to protest. With all these different opinions, there was no one Jewish leader in America, which prevented them from effectively voicing their opinion. There was a lot of anti-Semitism going on in America, which made it even harder for American Jews to try to stop what was happening in Europe. Some Jews did not want to voice their opinion because they feared losing their job or being a victim of discrimination. Robert Sheridan was a Jewish teenager living in New York during the Holocaust. What did you think was going on in Europe in terms of the Holocaust and what was happening to Jews in Europe?
Basically, there was very little information. There were rumors. There was some reporting out. Not a lot. The fact is that the American government knew a lot more about the concentration camps. We knew that there were concentration camps. We had no idea to the outside world, other than the leaders of maybe the countries, they didn't talk about it. The world didn't know, well, the outside world didn't know what was going on. And we didn't know about the Holocaust with any kind of certainty. There were occasional things that were smuggled out of the camp that got to Israel. So there was a huge amount of concern. But the fact is, we really didn't know. The term Holocaust didn't exist. That came into use later after it was discovered. Well, New York City had a large German population. Now, I can remember, well, first of all, there was a lot of very open anti-Semitism in the United States at that time. But in 1939, only 2 years before Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor and we entered the war, there was an organization called the German Bund, UND, and they were marching down 86th Street in Manhattan with the Nazi swastikas and their swastika armbands. For the most part, they were American citizens, but they clearly were Nazis. And marching, they had a right to do, but it was, that was an example of how close to the surface anti-Semitism